Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aisha Noor, or you can just call me Noor. Here I do makeup while telling you murder cases that keep me up all night. Please don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, like. So today we are going to talk about the ABC killer, and without any further ado, let's jump into the video. And I also did my foundation and eyebrows off camera, as you can see. So I'll just start with the eyes. So let's jump in. Tell me what you'll do if it was your day off and you decided to go rabbit hunting. I don't know who does that, but you decided to go rabbit hunting, and instead you stumble upon not one, not two, but 10 dead bodies. So this is exactly what happened to a police officer in Johannesburg back in September 17th, 1995. So like I said, he stumbled upon 10 dead bodies. Some of these bodies were totally skeletons, some were badly decomposed, dehydrated, and some were just fresh. So they suspected that these bodies were a result of a serial killings that have been going on around for the past year, and they were hunting him down. So they found it was 30 female bodies, and they all had a profile. All all they all had a profile. They all seemed to be black women aged from between 19 years all the way to 43 years, and he had his preferred way of killing was strangulation by the clothing of the women, so either by their bras or their panties, or some even he strangled them with their handbag straps. So one mother was found with her strangled, and her bra was bound, her hands were bound with her bra, and her infant baby boy was found not a few feet away from her, dead. So these killings became so regular that it started happening once every 2 weeks, and then down to once a week, and then down to 2 bodies every week. That's a lot. That this guy was like wacky. Like he said, I know the devil works hard, but I will work even harder. Anyway, these killings became so bad, the crimes were so bad, that the president Nelson Mandela himself went to the fields where the killings were taking place. And at this point, the investigators had the DNA and the very many leads, but they no suspects, so they hadn't put a face to the killings yet, but they had the DNA and very many leads. While going through the evidence, one police officer remembered a missing news story of a lady called Trifina Mohotsi. I am sorry if I've butchered that name, but I'll try to the best of my ability to correctly pronounce the names. Trifina Mohotsi. So Trifina was a single mother who was, supporting her extended family. And so this officer decided to go and investigate, and he questioned Trifina's workmates. One of her best friends, who was also her co-worker, her name was Esther. I remember the last day she saw Trifina, she was with a man named Moses Sitole, and he offered her a job. The police ran-checked Moses Sitole and uncovered one Moses Sitole who had been convicted for rape years back. So they took his photograph and showed it to Trifina's friend Esther, and they positively identified him. The police went to his home, but he was steps ahead. He left his wife and young daughter Martha, and it seemed to be, like I said, steps ahead. They put Sitole's picture on the front paper of all over South Africa, all across South Africa, so they had a face to these crimes at last. On October 1995, they were on a trail for Moses Sitole. They didn't know where he was, but they received a tip from Moses Sitole's brother-in-law. He actually came through for the police. He helped them, and by this time this guy had murdered 37 women, one child, and had raped 40 women. That's a lot of crimes. This guy was like busy. And while Sitole, when the brother-in-law helped the police catch him, I'm going to explain that in detail how you as the story comes together. When he was convicted, when he was convicted and he was awaiting trial, he gained the trust of the trust and confidence of one of the inmates, and he agreed to do a interview, but the inmate, recorded him secretly, and that is where he confessed to all the murders. And he said he did these murders because he was mad at the betrayal he had gotten from women all through his life. It was, an act of aggression to women because of the betrayal that he had gotten all through his life. So we are going to talk about his childhood. Moses Sitole was the fourth child of Sophia and Simon Sitole, and he was born on 17th of November 1964. These times were hard times, man. It was the times where the government separated the blacks and segregated them. It was really hard. So it wasn't an easy time. And when he was 6 years, Simon sadly passed away and left, Sophia to fend for the kids. And she couldn't do it. So she sent her kids to orphanages, and Moses Sitole explained this to be a very hard time in his life, and it was just not a pleasing time in his life, to the point that when he was 6 years old, he ran away to go, get reunited with his mother, but he did not receive the joyous reunion that he thought he would. His mother, then just sent him back to the orphanages. She was like, mm-mm, I cannot take care of you. She sent him back, and Moses did not like this. That was he hated it there. He hated it there. So when he was 11, he was again sent to a different, like transferred, more like transferred to a different orphanage. And at that point, he ran away and hitchhiked 300 miles to go stay with his brother. At this time, he was 11 years old. Yeah, I mentioned that. So he was alone. He started doing odd jobs. He started, boxing and building up his strength. And, the ladies said he was a charming man. He had a really good smile. He was smooth with the ladies. He was a ladies' man. But on the flip side, he had anger issues. He would flip at the slightest rejection from the opposite sex. He would totally flip. So in 1987 was first when Sitole first acted on these impulses. That's when he attacked his girlfriend's sister Patricia. How? I just don't get it. Anyway, he raped her, he assaulted her, and she feared for his life. She escaped, yes, but she feared for his life, for her life, sorry, her life. She feared for her life, so this resulted her not going to the authorities. This resulting to Sitole becoming more arrogant in his work and becoming violent, and he assaulted again and again. And by his third victim was Linda. Linda was also a sister to another girlfriend. Again, in 1989, Moses Sitole met a woman called Doris, and he told her that he was a very successful businessman in a neighboring town, and that was a lie. This time he was working as a social clerk, but he lied to this girl and promised to give her work, and he even offered to take her to her new place of work himself. So she was excited, like, oh my god, like she had hit the lottery. So he offered and she accepted. When they reached the train station, Moses suggested that they should take a shortcut through the trails. And keep in mind, this is not uncommon at that time for people to just pass through trails in empty fields. It was a shortcut. They were used to doing this. So keep that in mind. It was not uncommon. These women were not setting themselves up for, this, because I know some people like, why are they going, to the trail which is segregated? This was actually common. Most people use this segregated food trails as shortcuts. So he suggested that, and she accepted, not suspecting a thing. And when they reached a remote area where people will not hear her scream, he then proceeded to assault her. He sexually assaulted Doris, and he obviously threatened her and told her, I'm not going to kill you if you're not going to tell the authorities that, what happened. And of course, she did not tell on him at all. But then 3 months later, Doris spotted Moses, in town at a shop, and she was frantic, and she ran to the police. And she told the police, this man raped me, and she just told the police everything, resulting to Moses Sitole being, captured and arrested for 7 years. Moses felt betrayed. Moses was enraged. Like, Doris, we had a pact. I was to assault you and not kill you, and that was the end of my bargain. And you were not to tell the authorities, but you did. Anyway, so that was his thinking. It was like, she betrayed me. We had a deal. So now I'm so angry. When I get out, I'm going to kill women. No, literally, that is what he was planning in prison. He was, he was feeling his anger and rage, and he was like, I'm going to behave so good, but when I get out, I am going to, commit the worst of the worst crimes. Enough of me ranting. So anyway, he met Martha, a sister, to one inmate, and they had a liking to each other. They kind of fell in love, and when he got out of prison, they moved in together, despite Martha's family, not agreeing to their relationship. But what could you do? They fell in love. So he started working with Mother's brother. Martha, they met in prison when Martha was visiting her brother, who was also an inmate in the same prison. So that's how they met. So when he was out, he it was a humble beginning, because he started working at he started working fixing cars with Mother's brother at at the yard, the father's yard. It was a humble beginning, but at least it was he had, life gave him a second chance. So it was also the time when, black South Africans got their freedom. It was a really good time, and people were moving to the city because now they had freedom to move anywhere, and they were getting jobs. It was a really good time. And at this time, he stopped working at the yard. He stopped fixing cars. So every morning he'd like get out with a folded newspaper with the reason that I'm going to search for a job. And it was believable, not knowing this guy was planning his first murder. And his victim preference was young black women who are looking for jobs. So young unemployed black women, because they were naive, they were from the rural, the city is something new, they have this innocence to them, you know what I mean. So that was his target, preference of victims. In July 1994, Sitole met a young 19-year-old girl whose name was Maria, in the streets of Pretoria, and he introduced himself as Sylvester. Let me just do my eyeliner off camera, because I cannot talk and do this at the same time.
2,000 years later.
I'm back, and I did my eyeliner and did the lashes too offline. He lured Maria to a remote area, and he strangled her, and this will be his first murder ever. So when the police found the body, they found a note on Maria's leg that said, "I am not fighting with you. We will stay here until you understand." Over the next 4 months, he had assaulted and strangled 5 women. He grew so arrogant in his work that the police will one day find a body, and then 2 days later, they will find another body in the same exact area. He adopted a pattern of looking for young, naive ladies who are unemployed, looking for work. We already know this. This was his preferred type of victim. And he was a very manipulative person because he'd call some of these ladies in a crowded area, like a bus station or train station, and he'd like flag down a taxi. So he'd create all a situation whereby you can trust him. And I'd see why. You're naive, you are employed, you're looking for work. This guy came and he's offering you work. He told you to meet him in a public area. I can see why these ladies trusted him, because he created a trustful, environment. So he flagged down the taxis, and when they reached those fields, like, and the routes, the footpaths, you remember me saying them, he'd like stop the taxi and they'd take that as a shortcut, and he will lure his victim into like a remote area whereby people cannot hear screams, and then he will like get his knife off of his folded newspaper and go ahead and you know assault the victim and murder the victim. And he got so arrogant that he was like, you know what, killing these victims and just leaving them for dead and the police finding them is not enough. I have to taunt their families. This guy, it just doesn't end. It just doesn't get better with him. He even called one grandmother and had the audacity to tell her, "I am so glad that you are working on Monica's grave." What did this grandmother do to you? What did even Monica do to you? What did all these women do to you? So anyway, by July 1995, the police, he had murdered 18 women. The police hadn't found him yet. So women in South Africa were very cautious about how they move, where they move, with who they move. So most of them weren't like walking alone. Most of them weren't going out at night. They were really afraid of their lives. And he noticed that these women were becoming more and more cautious. He fabricated a more sophisticated way to lure women. He can't stop. He cannot stop himself by this time. He's like, mm-mm, you're being more cautious. I am going to lure you. I'm going to find a way, and he did. So he invented a fixed social service agency, and by the name of the irony of it all, his fake service agency was called Youth Against Human Abuses. Wow. Just wow. The audacity of this guy. He doesn't stop. So he printed out job applications, and he was handing them out to unemployed women, and it was believable. And he found a photographer who he asked if the photographer could like help him find an orphanage where he had 2 orphans that he would like them to be put in, and the photographer found an orphanage by the name of Kids Haven. So this Kids Haven is where he will meet Trifina Mohotsi. I remember her. So Trifina worked at the orphanage, and he approached her and told her that, I'd like for you to like come work at my agency, and if you get accepted, you will get a hefty bonus upfront. So Trifina was excited because like she she is the breadwinner. She supports her extended family, so obviously. And her friend Esther say remember thinking how jealous she is of Trifina because she's getting all this money supporting her family. She got this new job, and the next day this guy, Moses Sitole, came and gave Trifina the good news that you've been accepted in our company, and I can escort you there myself. I will personally escort you there. So obviously, Trifina was excited and she went. So that was the last time Esther ever saw her friend and co-worker Trifina. So when Trifina never came back home, her family was really worried and they went to the police, reported her missing, and her picture was published on newspapers. And 1 month later, she was the missing. You remember, she was the missing lady. The officer like thought about and was like connecting the dots. If it was connected with all this. Yes, it is connected. So 1 month later, the officer found the pile of like 10 bodies in the field, and Trifina's body was one of the bodies, sadly. And that is when the police connected all the dots, and they were like, we now have a face to the crimes, to the killings. We do now have a face, Moses Sitole. And they published his pictures on newspapers everywhere. They published his pictures on newspapers. So he was on the run. On October 2nd, 1995, he called a newsroom, and a reporter by Tamzin Debia picked up the phone, and she just picked up the phone, and he said, I am the man everybody is looking for. And just chills, like it cannot be the Moses Sitole. But unfortunately enough, it was Moses Sitole, and they had three lengthy conversations. And within, like, they kept on talking, and they kind of like build a trust because he called her again. And at this time, she thought it was not real. She thought it was a hoax. And also the police, because she went to the police, she told the police about this, and also the police were like, they don't believe her, like, this is the Moses Sitole, he cannot do this, and he knows that we're looking for him. So the next time he called her, she said, I want you to prove to me that it is actually you. So what Moses Sitole did is that he gave her a vivid description of a body that was not found before, a body that police had not found before. And when the police went, they found the body where he said, and the description matched. So they knew they were dealing with the true Moses Sitole. So at this time, 3 days later, he called the reporter back, and they talked, but the police were nearby because they were on to him. They were nearby, and his phone was about to cut off because he ran out of money. So she was like, give me your number, I'll call you right back, and we can continue with our discussion. So he gave her the number because they had built this trust. But what he did not know is that the police were onto him, and the investigators traced the number to a nearby petrol state train station. Not petrol station. They traced it to a nearby train station, and it's like he knew because he didn't hang up. He just left the phone. He ran for it. He ran for it. And that was when he called his brother-in-law. You remember? Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. He called his brother-in-law because he needed a gun, and the brother-in-law said that, yeah, I'll help you, no problem. But he contacted police, and they orchestrated this plan that they orchestrated this plan, and the police were involved, and they were going to give him the gun, and that's when they were going to catch him. So this what happened. They agreed to meet at a warehouse, and one of the guards was a real guard, and he did not know what was going on. But the other guard was a police officer. But when Moses Sitole reached there, he kind of suspected, some fish is going on here. So he ran for it. He took a run for it, and he just went. So when the police officer saw this, he ran after Moses like, I'm not going to let you go free. You are not going to be killing more of our women. So he ran after Moses, and Moses just he just looked back and swung an axe at him. And as a reaction, the officer shot him twice. He shot him on his leg and his abdomen. So he was caught and he was taken to a hospital. When he was being interrogated in the hospital, he was acting a fool because the officer was like, "So, Sitole, like, why were you doing this? Explain to us." And he was like, "What do you mean? What killings? I don't know what you're talking about. I really do not know what you're talking about. I'm here with you." This guy, he played a fool. He was like, so what they did, they used a different strategy. They sent in a female interrogator, and it worked because he started bragging about his crimes and what he had done, and how bad it was. And as he was explaining this to the female interrogator, he got so aroused that he jacked off. Ew, disgusting. This guy, he beats me like I don't even know. So yeah, he was explaining to the female interrogator. He was so aroused, he jacked off, and he got better. People were angry. People wanted to deal with Moses themselves. They were like, hey. So he was highly protected. And when he went to court, because he got well, he went to court, and he had 140 witnesses testify for the state. This man was hated. This man committed crimes against the nation. So he he was still charming, he was still confident, he was even trying to intimidate the witnesses. You remember Trifina's Mohotsi's friend. Her name was Esther. She was at the stand testifying against him. He was trying to intimidate her by like laughing and like playing all cool, and I'm not even bothered. And she says that he's a scary man. He is a scary man. So he obviously was found guilty, and the state people wanted to people wanted people did not want him to be convicted by the state. They wanted him, like they wanted to deal with him themselves. And at that time there was no death sentence. There was no death sentence. So what the judge made sure that this guy was never going to kill another soul. He was never going to hurt any other woman. He was never going to hurt any other child ever in his life. So he's a smart guy, because what he did, he gave him a sentence that he will never get out. Just a minute. Yeah, I'm back. So he's a smart guy. So he gave him 2,410 years in prison without the possibility of parole. This guy is never going to get out. Yeah, you did not get the death sentence. Yeah, the people did not get to deal with you, but he got the ultimate sentence. And justice was served, even though he can never bring back the lives of the 38 women and one child he took away. He can never bring that, and that is so sad. He killed 38 people and raped 40 women. He sexually assaulted 40 women. So that is the story of Moses Sithole. Some people know him as the South African Ted Bundy. You know Ted Bundy. He's known as that. And that is the story of the ABC killer. And today I am looking all pink, pink, pretty pink. Yeah, this is today's makeup look. And yeah, so do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, and click on that notification down below. See you next time. Bye, my lovelies. Bye.